North Canterbury's Compass FM. We have the very great pleasure of welcoming into the studio Cushla Waghorn from the Community Wellbeing North Canterbury Trust. Hello, good afternoon, Cushla.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you for taking the time to pop in and see us. Now, Cushla, you've come to tell us, advise us on some of the information you might be able to impart to parents about the transition to school. Now, obviously, it's back to school next week for all of the children, I guess, after a very long summer holiday. They seem to get more holidays than we used to.
Feels like it,
doesn't it? So what are some of the things parents and caregivers can do to help that transition go smoothly?
Okay. I think it's quite natural when we do something new to feel a little bit nervous. So that's probably the first thing to think about, that children and parents can both feel quite nervous about going to school, whether it's their first time at school or it's the start of a new year. When we do new things, it can make us feel a little bit worried and a little bit anxious maybe. So I think it's about parents letting children know that that's quite natural, that's okay, that they might be feeling a little bit nervous themselves. So it's using those I statements, talking about, I feel a bit nervous about next week, how do you feel? Using a lot of that emotion language.
Yes, placing yourself in that situation, if you like, saying,
Yes.
I'm going to miss you going to school, So there's an emotional, sharing of emotions there.
It's a time to, have a discussion, but I also think we want resilience in our children. So
Absolutely.
we are talking about the emotion, but then we're letting them know that we know that they can do it.
Yep.
We pull on our past experiences, so it might be saying to a young child, you did it last year when you started school, and even though it's a new year and a new teacher, you know where the school is, you know what it looks like, so you're going to be okay. For a child who's just starting school, you might talk about preschool and the fact that they went there and they didn't know everybody at the start and they could do it. So you want to set the expectation of being at school.
Yep.
You want to be able to say to them when you're at school. Don't say if you're at school.
Yes.
Because as soon as we start to do things like that, then children, it actually raises their anxiety.
Okay, no, that's interesting. So do you have any tips for parents whose children are beginning high school this term?
Yes, I think it's a bit more of the same. Obviously, you can, you're sort of the king of the school a little bit once you're finishing primary school, aren't you? You've risen to the top and you're a senior.
Yes.
And now you're going to be at the bottom again, so that can be quite daunting. However, I think it's the same. Be prepared. Make sure that your child is an active participant in getting ready for school, so they know what stationery they have, they pack their own bag, they make their own lunch, they might go and have a walk around the school grounds in the holidays, or they might look at the school website, look at what their teacher's going to look like, have a look at the map of the school. So everything that they're doing to prepare themselves gives them power. If we do it all for them, then they don't actually have the power in that situation. So
Okay, that's understandable. So now, do this is just something I've thought of. Do their friends help them with this transition? Are friends, useful in sharing the experience?
absolutely. At that age, those are the key people in their lives. Friends are everything. And I suppose it is about maybe walking to school with a friend or knowing that you know somebody in your class. Friendships often change once they get to high school. But the other thing is that you might need to do a bit of role play with your child. How do I introduce myself to new people? What sort of topics might I talk about when I'm trying to meet new people and make new friends?
Yeah. So what about parents and caregivers of those littlies, who are off to school for the first time?
I think parents are often just as nervous as children, if not more.
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
So I think it's the same idea too, that young children need to have an active role in getting ready for school. So little children, even if they're 5, can still carry their school bag. It'd be great if they knew what was in their lunchbox and they knew how to open the food that's in their lunchbox.
Yep.
They had a picture of their teacher. Hopefully you've done some school visits. You might go and play on the playground beforehand. They know what their uniform looks like. You've practiced putting it on, taking it off again. All of those little stumbling blocks. I think having a plan is good.
Yep.
That you can refer to. Remember, if they said to you, I'm worried about something, then you help them to problem solve. Don't problem solve for them, but help them to come up with a plan of different options, and it might be that you practice those together.
And I like the idea of practice, because that's making familiarity a friend as well, isn't it? You know, being familiar with things.
Absolutely.
So where can people go for further information for dealing with the children going off to school next week?
There's a great booklet that we have that you can get from Community Wellbeing North Canterbury Trust. We're at level 129 High Street in Rangiora, and it's a brochure that's free for parents that says got a young one starting school. There's also a workbook that we have available that is developed by Manaaki, and that's just a workbook that any children could use to work through. It's like a social story about going back to school after a break.
Well, some great advice there, Cushla. Thank you so much for coming in this afternoon and sharing your ideas with how to ease the children back into transitioning to school next week.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you so much for coming in. Cushla Waghorn, the Community Wellbeing North Canterbury Trust in North Canterbury. Thank you very much. You're on Compass FM.